Good morning. It is a memorable day in the city of Seattle. It's Tuesday, December 4th, 2018, and Seattle, welcome back to the NHL. This is Teal Town Live. We occasionally do all these on occasion here and there, along with our Teal Town After Dark. And last night we put up a Pucknologist. So do us a favor, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. And of course, if you want to be a part of the show, this works exactly like Teal Town After Dark. Multiple ways to interact with us. Join us in the YouTube Super Chat with yours truly and fellow Sharks fans. We also want to welcome those of you in Seattle who are getting this live on YouTube right now. So by all means, join us in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us. And off we go. And we're saying hello to buddy there, Rob Iman. I'm going to get to that question in just a minute in due time, but definitely want to say hello to everybody over there. So what just happened? About an hour ago, the NHL has approved the city of Seattle to be a part of the 32nd franchise in the NHL. They'll begin play in 2021-22 at a rebuilt Seattle Center Arena. If you kind of followed along with the news, essentially the arena is going to be done in 2021, and they were kind of pushing to have it go work all day and all night to get it up by November 2020, which means for the first month that Seattle franchise would have played on the road. This gives them a little more time, so now they're expecting March or April 2021 for the currently named Key Arena to be completely refurbished, except for the roof, the iconic roof that's been up there for years. I think it's gone under another renovation back in 1996. That will stay on, but everything else will be brand new. I think they even said they're going 15 feet deeper into the ground. Seattle was announced saying that they will be playing in the Pacific Division, which means this. Well, we have 9 teams. How's that going to happen? Well, Arizona will be moving to the Central Division in 2021. Commissioner Bettman at a press conference earlier stating that it makes more sense since the majority of the time Arizona is on mountain time during a good chunk of the NHL season, and even said that they draw more better crowds when they're playing Central Division foes. So that kind of makes sense there. Of course, the speculation is that that sets them up perfectly if they're going to relocate somewhere in the Central or Mountain time zone. That remains to be seen, but nonetheless, it's probably a good move for Arizona as well. Everybody else will be in the same division as it is. The key cognate here, and we've heard this already before when there was being discussed, the Seattle expansion draft, and we'll get into a little bit deeper as we move on, but that'll take place in June 2021. Not sure if that's going to coincide with the NHL award show like it did with Seattle, but that remains to be seen. However, the same rules as the Vegas expansion draft apply here for the teams. Vegas, well, they kind of brokered a deal essentially saying that they were going to be exempted, and they are exempted from this draft, even though they'll be going into their 5th year in the NHL. Something that we saw San Jose get when Tampa Bay and Ottawa came in, and likewise when Ottawa and Tampa Bay were exempted when Anaheim and Florida came into the league. So that nothing too new there in the regards of everything like this. Going into the chat, yeah, Seattle goes to the Pacific, Yotes go out to the Central. That confirms it right then and there. Fact or fiction, Rob Iman and Coyotes relocate to Houston. Don't know about that. We'll see about that. Felix Chow, I hope there's no more expansions for a while after this. Commissioner Bettman did mention that that you could have some more expansion, and of course it was brought up by a French Canadian reporter in the press conference. Would there be more expansion? They're always open to it, but right now they're not looking into it. So take that as you will. So Quebec City, be the team. You're essentially Winnipeg now. When teams were looking for a new franchise, so be on the lookout for that. So, what does this mean for the divisions? Well, I'm glad you asked. The realignment now gives both divisions in the Western Conference the same amount of teams, and this is how it's going to look. So in the Pacific, you're going to have Anaheim, Calgary, Los Angeles, Seattle, Vegas. Somebody forgot to put Vancouver on here, but nonetheless, whoops, this is what happens when you make graphics too quickly, folks. So you're going to have Arizona, Calgary, Edmonton, Los Angeles, San Jose, Seattle, Vegas, Vancouver. Those will be your teams. Excuse me. Those will be your teams in the Pacific Division. Definitely great rivalries all around. You almost have rebuilt the Smythe essentially with taking Winnipeg out with how big the divisions are now. You have, of course, the California teams will be rivals. Anaheim, San Jose, LA. Then you have Vegas to throw in there to coincide with that. You also have the old Northwest teams in the Pacific, in the Canadian Pacific, where you have Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. Definitely, you want those rivalries to be the same too. And then you throw in Seattle. Seattle's approximately like 120 miles from Vancouver. So you're definitely going to have a Seattle-Vancouver rivalry. You're going to have the Edmonton-Calgary rivalry. You're going to have the Vancouver-Edmonton-Calgary rivalry. Then, of course, the natural rivalry between the three California teams with San Jose, Anaheim, and LA. And then, you add Vegas in to that mix. So definitely a whole lot of rivalries there. And it really, the travel is a little bit bigger, but you definitely have more of a balance out on the Pacific Division now. And you look at it, you have Vancouver, San Jose, Seattle, LA, Anaheim, Vegas. That's 6 teams now in the Pacific time zone in the NHL. For players and everything, that's going to be a huge thing as they move along in the way of life. Hockey trick. How does this affect the Leafs? It doesn't affect the damn Leafs. It'll be interesting. Hockey trick all going on and saying Quebec is never getting a team, even with a new arena. No one wants to drive 30 minutes into the woods to see a game. That remains to be seen, but hey, it worked for the Nordiques. I personally think if there's any more trouble with like teams that usually get the usual grip from also they're usually are criticized for relocation, and it could be a spot for them to go. Wow, this is what happens when I get on here and didn't brush my hair too well. I apologize for that. Houston, maybe. Milwaukee, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. Milwaukee just has a brand new arena. I think it's more basketball centric, which is the problem that Seattle had. Seattle's arena was very similar to America West Arena in Phoenix and Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Excuse me. Definitely see that as a bad arena. That's why they're rebuilding it. An $800 million arena construction project, which has already gone up from the 550. I think it was proposed like 3-4 years ago. So essentially, $800 million to rebuild the arena. You throw in the Northgate Mall. You throw in the Northgate Mall project, which would be where they practice their facilities at, and we were trying to get a hold of Gen X to come on here to discuss about that. But going through his tweets earlier, and I'll mention it in here because I think it's a really good, interesting perspective from a person who lives in the Northwest. To quote him, yeah, it's all cool. Seattle's getting a new team, but one, how many more sheets are they going to be building in the area? Right now, it looks like 3. Of course, we saw in San Jose the effect that had. It ended up expanding the massive amount of sheets on ice throughout the Bay Area. 2, how long to the T-Birds and the Silvertips before they have to move? Those who aren't familiar with the Western Hockey League, the junior league out here in the West, the Seattle Thunderbirds and the Everett Silvertips are relatively close to the area. That question being is how long do they have before they have to move? That's a really interesting question. The Seattle Thunderbirds have been around for well over 30 plus years. They used to play at Key Arena, and they've built a relatively new arena, probably like 10, 12 years old, out in the outlying area of Kent, Washington. Everett's fairly new too. They're like more south and a little more east, if my geographical knowledge of the state of Washington is correct. So that's going to be interesting. Another thing that Gen X brought up in his tweets, what is the ownership going to do for youth hockey in the area? And that's a great point. Of course, you saw the little girl that was on the in the press conference. You would hope that they do an outpour of hockey promotions in the Seattle area, in the metro area of Seattle and in the outlying areas. I mean, this can go statewide, so it'll be interesting to see there how they do that, because you want to build that up. You want to see everything that takes place. You saw how in the 25th season of the Sharks, how they highly touted Matt Tennyson from being like the first junior Sharks player to play in the NHL. And granted, he's had ups and downs. He's been in the minors and such, and he's been, with a couple other teams since he's left San Jose. That being said, it's something to grow on. And we've seen how Sharks Ice alone in San Jose is like one of the busiest arenas in west of the Mississippi. So it'll be interesting to see how that occurs going on. 3 sheets in Northgate, which is a pain to get to even from Seattle, is nice and all, but there are going to be new ones in the area. That'll be hopefully nice. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do. You wonder all about the tax breaks, and I'm not going to get into all of that there. So looking into the chat, Rob Ivan, the Thunderbirds to move just to Tacoma. That's a possibility. We'll see. Sorry, and thank you, Hockey Jerk, for correcting that. I apologize for that. Alec Martinez is the first junior Shark to play in the NHL. Of course, he was the infamous guy who scored the cup-winning goal for the LA Kings in 2014. Matt Tennyson is the first junior Shark to play for the Sharks. So I apologize for that, Jerk. Thank you for correcting me on there. So we'll see how it goes. Not to get off track here, Rob Iman, Shark would only play an exhibition game at Chase Center. I would think so. I think it's okay for hockey, but it's not ideal for Chase Center to host a hockey game. So that remains to be seen. So, Jerk also mentioning that, with this, it could go to an 84 game schedule. It'll be interesting if they were to add on, which makes sense for here. 4 games against 7 Pacific teams. That's 28 games right there. 3 games against the Central. That's another 24. 2 games against the Eastern teams, 32, and 84 game season. That's very doable. I think you look at that and that evens it out everywhere. You get 2 games each time against your division rivals. I mean, remember when the lockout ended in 2005, I think the Desert Dogs, sorry, I don't have a drink with me today, but the Desert Dogs, I think, came to town like 3 times in a matter of 2 weeks, and the Sharks played their division 8 times. Now, granted, there was 5 teams in the division at the time before realignment, shrunk the division alignment from 6 to 4. So we'll see. A lot of curious about the Kuhre going to Sacramento or anything. It makes sense for them to play in the same building. I mean, it makes sense for the Barracuda to stay in the same building. But we're getting off track. Let's get back to what's coming on for Seattle. So we talked about the arena. We talked about everything. Let's talk about expansion. Now, expansion rules, like we said, they're going to be the same as as the Vegas Golden Knights expansion draft, and it's going to come down like this: 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, 1 goalie. You can have as one option, or you can go with the 8 skaters, which is a combination of forwards and defensemen, and 1 goaltender. All players who have currently effective and continuing no move clauses at the time of the draft, and such who decline to waive such clauses are affected. So you're thinking about that. We'll get into that a little bit down the road, coming on for that, courtesy of Cap Friendly. Also, all first year and second year pros, as well as unsigned draft choices, will be exempt from the selection and won't be counted towards the upcoming draft. That's where you kind of saw in the last draft Timo Meier, Jonas Donskoy, to name a few. I think even to mention a couple of them where they were okay. So we'll see where that goes on, and it'll be interesting to see what they have. Mac87, thanks for joining us in. Seattle, Vancouver, already geographical rivalry. Yeah, and that's the best part about it, is that they're going to have that rivalry happen once again. That'll be interesting. A lot of talk about the name Seattle Emeralds is nice. There have been a number of names that were submitted to the league already. They do get a say in the name, but nothing's been mentioned about it. It was interesting at the press conference how they were talking about the name. One reporter asked about if it's if Metropolitans was considered. It hasn't been considered, which is interesting. And what the interesting thing is that this great, I forget his name, but I think his name was Jason Cox, if I'm not remembering. Justin Cox, that's right. Justin Cox made this awesome design for the Seattle Metros or Metropolitans, and kind of going through it. I mean, that the logo is generic itself, that it could be used for anything. They can change it up, especially as an alternate logo, but really a great look all around. Those uniforms are sick, and let's be honest here, they got to have green in their color scheme, right? And they have to. I mean, it looks really sharp on there. So it'll be interesting to see. Yager might not be rocking an alternate jersey of the Seattle franchise, but it's nice to look at. So definitely, a lot of people are excited for this to happen. The league's really been pushing it for quite some time, so we'll see where that happens down the road. Seattle Baristas, John Bokolig, I like that. Alden saying the Seattle Light Rails. Now. I mean, that's the interesting one. So we got a tweet coming in from the fourth period here. Pay close attention to the jersey. Similar to what the home teams will be. Looks like they're kind of looking at the girl in there that they're looking at a red and black color scheme. Definitely seen red a lot more, but I would mainly seen if it would be, have a little green to it. I think that would make sense all around, to be honest. So, Erik Bottomer, if you're watching, and I know you're a good fan, how excited are you that you get to go with a clean slate for another franchise? That's really cool. He was part of the design crew for the Vegas Golden Knights. And Mac 87 Metropolitans, should they rename the division in the East then? That's the catch as to why maybe Metropolitans haven't been an option, because it is a name of a division in the NHL. So now time for the NHL add promotion relegation. No, that's not gonna, that definitely won't happen. I can't see that happening at all. So, chat, I'll come to you for any questions, comments that you have about the expansion. And while we do that, again, let's reiterate: Seattle has been granted the expansion into the NHL. They'll begin play in 2021-22. They'll be playing in the Pacific Division. The Arizona Coyotes will move on to the Central Division, joining the 7 teams that are already in existence there. Divisions will be all being renamed. See, Pacific Northwest being a very successful market. The thing too is, I would hope it is, and I hope it doesn't hinder the junior teams that are in the area. I mean, you have the Seattle Thunderbirds that play in Kent outside of Seattle. You have the Everett Silvertips, who just play nearby as well. You also have that's more Eastern Washington. You also have the Tri-City Americans and the Spokane Chiefs. Spokane Chiefs, of course, well known because that's where the Sharks' first ever draft pick came from, Pat Flynn, and the second one with Ray Whitney. So it's still great to see. Yeah, I completely agree, Felix. I just love hearing stuff on hockey being spread out, albeit not like Seattle hasn't had exposure to hockey. Still great to see. Yeah, it's definitely hasn't been seen in the Seattle. They last played in 1924 in the Pacific Coast Hockey Association. They won the cup in 1917, becoming the first American team to do so. 11 years before an NHL American franchise did it with the Rangers. Kind of going in through 1924, the Seattle team folded and the PCHA ceased to operate. In its final season, the team had an average of 1,000 games per attendance. Arena owners subsequently did not renew the team's lease. The remaining teams of Vancouver and Victoria joined the West Coast Hockey, or the WCHL, Western Canada Hockey League. So that's where that would take place throughout the day. Now I think we have time for some questions beforehand. Abel, I've said Vancouver multiple times. Yes, I said it early. AJ Strong. The Metro will become the NBC division, as we already call it. Mac 87. Didn't Marleau play for the Thunderbirds? Yes, he did. He was a Seattle Thunderbird and played at Key Arena. Will Patrick Marleau be able to say he played there again? That will be the quite interesting perspective. Jeff Northwest J, and thank you for joining us here. Kraken, release the Kraken, as he goes on to say. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like for them throughout, and it'll be interesting to see what they do for the name. Again, some speculation that they're already considering red and black. I think they kind of have to get into the agreement with the Canucks, I think, because it's easy to go blue and green or green and blue for Seattle. Of course, the Canucks also went black, red, and gold. So interesting. AJ Strong, it makes a great point. And just a week later now, Marleau hasn't scored on every team. He's going to have to wait at about 3 more years for that to come back to fruition. And you know what? That should be interesting to see. Illuminato, red and black are already the most overused colors. Yes, it also needs to be considered how you use it. Could you go black and red? But, it's called the Emerald City. I mean, the Mariners have like a teal shade of green that they use. The Seahawks use that lime green. Could we see lime green in the NHL? I wouldn't be surprised, but I hope like heck they are not like the Seahawks color rush uniforms. That would be rough to see. So we'll see on that. So all right. With that, I think we'll get going here. I was hoping to have Gen X come on, but I think he's stuck in a conference call right now. So we'll let him tend to slightly more important matters in regards to his job and such. But to reiterate once again, Seattle becomes the 32nd team in the NHL. Play in the Pacific. The Coyotes go to the Central. The Seattle whatevers, we'll call them, will have the same rules as the Vegas Golden Knights did in their expansion draft. The Knights are exempted from the draft, and that will be taking place in June of 2021. The Seattle Center Arena, or what formerly was called Key Arena, will be ready to go in March of 2021. So plenty of time for them to get on and everything, get ready for their team. So we will be back with you tomorrow night, barring any crazy breaking news, like will the Sharks make a trade? Then we'll be back on here. But for sure, we'll be back with you following Sharks and Canes on Teal Town After Dark, following the Sharks and Carolina Hurricanes. So until then, I'm Erik Kuhre. You can always follow me on Puckguy at Puckguy14 on Twitter and the Instagram. And in case you missed anything or you want to watch this again, this is always available on our YouTube channel, but a lot of our stuff is also available on audio stream, of course, at tealtownusa.com. You can also check it out on your favorite podcatcher, whether it's iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn. And of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell. I'll notify you whenever we come on and talk about anything hockey, just like just like this. AJ and Rocket just did a Pucknologist that came out literally last night. So you definitely have that to check out. And of course, Teal Town after every game. And of course, we throw in an interview here and there. So definitely check us out on our YouTube page as well. So until then, thank you very much. Oh, and don't forget Felix's Hockey Takes. Felix's Hockey Takes on tealtownusa.com. That just came out yesterday as well. So make sure you check that out on tealtownusa.com. So Illuminato, I like that. The Seattle TBDs, the Seattle to be determines. All right. So with that, I'll bid you adieu. I hope you have a wonderful day. Congratulations, Seattle. Welcome back to professional ice hockey. And until tomorrow night, we will see you after Sharks and Hurricanes. Keep it real. Keep it teal. Keep it real, Teal. We'll see you later on. Take care, everyone. Have a good one.